Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into episode number 2 of the Pro Football Chase YouTube channel. My name is Isaac David Signs. If you have not checked out episode number 1 that was uploaded on Wednesday evening, I encourage you to go check that out as well. So again, thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. I know it's Saturday. I know there's college football. I know there's plenty of good games, especially the A&M Clemson later on today. Now, for me personally, I am a Nebraska Cornhusker football fan, so Scott Frost will be making his debut today after Week 1's game getting suspended due to that storm that hit Lincoln last weekend. So again, looking forward to getting into Week 1 matchups. There's plenty to talk about there. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. The first game that I wanted to preview and kind of discuss some of the matchups is, of course, the Jaguars and the New York Giants. The Jaguars will go to East Rutherford, New Jersey. MetLife Stadium will be the location. And they're going to take on a New York Giants team that's under Pat Shurmur. Dave Gettleman took over as the general manager there in New York, made some personnel changes, and one of the more talked about matchups, you can say, is Jalen Ramsey and Odell Beckham Jr. That has been the marquee one-on-one battle. Both players have been asked plenty of questions about it in the media. That's going to be a great one to watch as Sunday's slate of games start. This one will be a noon game, so that's definitely going to be interesting to see how Odell Beckham looks coming back from that fractured ankle. How's Jalen Ramsey going to come out and perform after having a rather loud offseason, calling out all kinds of quarterbacks and many different players. So keep an eye out for that one. But as this matchup unfolds, I look at this Giants offensive line. It is completely revamped. Gettleman, we know he invests in the offense and defensive line. They went ahead and added Nate Solder in free agency. They drafted Will Hernandez, a talented guard out of the University of Texas, El Paso. And then they also signed the former Jacksonville Jaguar right guard there to help fill that void. And then right tackle, they moved Eric Flowers. So he's moving from left tackle where he's had some struggles. So now he's going to be on that right side. Of course, number 26, Saquon Barkley, will be in the backfield. So the Giants and Pat Shurmur are going to hope that they can get this rushing attack going this season. Now, it's going to be a tall task going up against this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. They have plenty of star talent there. The list goes on and on. Yannick Ngakoue, you got Calais Campbell, Malik Jackson, Telvin Smith, Miles Jack. I mean, this is a team that is just loaded, and that's not even mentioning the secondary they got with A.J. Boye, and then Jalen Ramsey, Tashawn Gibson, and then Barry Church, who's very good in run support. So as for my predictions in this one, I expect it to be a relatively low-scoring game. Of course, we'll see how Blake Bortles and that Jaguars offense puts out, Marquise Lee, who was looked at as their number one wideout, went down to a season-ending knee injury in the preseason. So that has propelled Dante Moncrief as well as Keelan Cole as the two starting receivers. Dede Westbrook working out of the slot. Jaden Mickens, the return specialist that can also do some things in the pass game. And then Leonard Fournette, their big power running back that I'm sure they're going to look to give him the ball 20 to 25 times tomorrow. And the way I see this game playing out, I think Jacksonville will be able to establish their rushing attack with Fournette. Don't look for Bortles to do too much against a very good Giants defense that's now under James Betcher running that 3-4 defensive alignment. Olivier Vernon will not play, so look for the rookie Lorenzo Carter to replace him on the edge. And in the end, I think Jacksonville takes it 20-17 in a very close game. As for Saquon Barkley, I know the guy has talent. I know he can work extremely well in space, but going up against this Jacksonville defense, I think he's going to have a tough debut. I think he'll have his share of nice runs, but I think the Jaguars defense will put together a game plan that is going to be able to limit his production there in New York on Sunday. The next matchup that I'm going to look at is the Houston Texans going to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. Now, this one is an intriguing matchup. just because these two teams met last year in week 3. The Patriots prevailed 36-33 in a very tightly contested ball game. Deshaun Watson had a field day out there against that New England secondary that still hasn't gotten everything together. They got Stephon Gilmore, so that matchup between him and DeAndre Hopkins will be one to watch. But I think as these two teams prepare to face each other again, I think Bill O'Brien and this Texans squad, now that they're fully healthy, they got J.J. Watt coming back, Whitney Merciless, and Jadeveon Clowney. What are you going to see from him? But one thing Belichick does very well, and Jamesy Hedibo joined me on my podcast yesterday to discuss this very specific point, was that Belichick, he does a good job of taking out the other team's top player. And we've seen it time and time again where whether he'll put a tight end on one end of the line to chip on J.J. Watt and will completely wipe him out of the game plan. And so I look for him to put out an offensive game plan along with Josh McDaniels that's going to try to eliminate J.J. Watt from disrupting in the backfield. So keep an eye. Now Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel. As for Michelle, his availability is not yet known for Sunday, but Burkhead is going to be good to go. So look for him to have a pretty nice role there. James White will be mixed in. So as far as Houston's secondary, I think that may be a little area of concern going up against Tom Brady and then Rob Gronkowski. We know the threat he is at that tight end position, the vertical weapon. As the red zone approaches, this Patriots team is very lethal. They are going to, obviously they lost Danny Amendola to Miami. Julian Edelman is suspended for the first 4 games. So this is a game I look for Chris Hogan to cash in and see a pretty fair share of targets throughout the entirety of the game. And so I think that's ultimately going to play the difference. I think the Patriots and their ability to move the ball at a consistent measure through the air, I think they're going to struggle in the run game against that Houston Texans defensive front that's now under Romeo Crennel, who's assumed those roles of defensive coordinator after Mike Vrabel left to Tennessee. So I think this is a Texans defense that's going to be stout for most of the game against New England, but it's going to be the minor halftime adjustments that Belichick and the Patriots always make that will get them going in the third and fourth quarter, and whatever that was taken away from that offense in the first half that Houston maybe specialized or keyed in on, I think they will make a minor tweak to that offensive game plan. And I know New England's secondary, I just alluded to it, they're still trying to get things together, how they're going to play, especially without Matt Patricia there. Brian Flores, their linebackers coach, is going to be the primary play caller. So I think that could be an area of uncertainty for this New England team, which is why I think it's going to be another shootout at Gillette Stadium. And again, I have the Patriots winning this one with Tom Brady throwing for 300 plus yards. They take it by a score of 31-27 over the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson. The next game that I want to talk about is the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's undefeated, 7-0, has not lost a game as a starting quarterback. Now, he's traveling to Minnesota to take on a Minnesota Vikings defense that is star-studded. Anthony Barr, Trey Wayne, Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith. They added George Aloka in free agency. Sheldon Richardson there on the defensive line of play with Everson Griffin, Linval Joseph. This is a team, Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks. These guys, there's not a weak spot on this defensive unit. And I know Xavier Rhodes is listed as questionable. All indications is that he will play on Sunday. So I don't think that's going to be a major concern for this Minnesota team. Now, Kirk Cousins officially makes his Week 1 regular season debut with that high-powered Minnesota Vikings offense that is returning 2 1,000-yard receivers in Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. And then Kyle Rudolph there at tight end, who's kind of an under-the-radar type of player, but with Kirk Cousins now at the helm and under center for the Vikings, look for Rudolph to really emerge more as a weapon and a target in that pass game. John DeFilippo is now their offensive coordinator, coming from the Super Bowl, the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. So you know he's bringing some wrinkles to this Minnesota Vikings offense. The San Francisco 49ers, their defense, I'm not quite sold on. I like some of the pieces they have there on the defensive line. Solomon Thomas, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead. They'll be without Malcolm Smith. And of course, Richard Sherman, who will be out there playing at one of the corner spots. But I just think this Minnesota Vikings offense has way too much firepower. And then I haven't even mentioned Dalvin Cook and his return to the field and what Latavius Murray brings to that running back combination there. I think Minnesota and this defense, they're going to put the clamps on Jimmy Garoppolo and the San Francisco 49ers. And I think they take it by multiple possessions, and I give them a win, going with 34-20 over the San Francisco 49ers to give Garoppolo his first loss as an NFL starter. On we go to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns matchup. I think this one is a little more highly anticipated than many people would have imagined at the beginning of the offseason. John Dorsey has taken over there in Cleveland. Tyrod Taylor is their guy. Pittsburgh is going to take on the Browns without Le'Veon Bell. We've seen this whole situation unfold. Bell still hasn't shown up. We don't even know when he's going to show up. This is a Cleveland Browns team that is revamped on both sides of the ball. You got Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, who will be active. He will not start, according to head coach Hugh Jackson and offensive coordinator Todd Haley, but he is supposed to play a role in this past game. And then Carlos Hyde, Nick Chubb, Duke Johnson, they're rounding out that Cleveland offense. Desmond Harrison, how about that? The undrafted free agent who was named the starting left tackle yesterday by Hugh Jackson. He'll be there with a pretty tough challenge to go up against a very talented Pittsburgh defensive front that consists of Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, and I look for this game to be really close. They're playing in Cleveland, and as I told James he had to go on the podcast yesterday, this is my upset special. I think the Cleveland Browns get it done. I think they win the first game of the 2018 regular season. Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, I think their connection is still going to be on, as it always is in most cases. And Denzel Ward, the number 4 overall pick, is likely to draw that matchup against the explosive Antonio Brown. So that's another one-on-one matchup that you're going to want to be taking a peek at on Sunday. But I just feel like this Browns defense under Greg Williams, they've looked really good in the preseason. Now, of course, you got to take it with a grain of salt because preseason offenses and defenses are very vanilla, so they're not going to roll out their entire offenses. That would just be naive, which all these NFL head coaches, they know better than that. That's why we don't see a lot of scoring and clean football in the preseason, but that's another topic of discussion for another day. But Roethlisberger has been known to struggle on the road. Now, of course, we're still in early September, so it's not a frigid temperature game there in Cleveland. But this new look defense, Myles Garrett, he's licking his chops to finally get after Ben Roethlisberger. I think he plays a big factor for this Browns defense in generating turnovers and getting pressure on Ben Roethlisberger. And in the end, I think they make a big turnover late in the game on Roethlisberger, whether it be a strip sack, a fumble, or an interception from Greg Williams' unit that gives the Browns a 26-23 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. The last matchup that I want to dissect here in this episode is this Los Angeles Chargers and Kansas City Chiefs matchup. This is an AFC West divisional game, so this is going to be a pretty significant one. As Jason Verrett told me, he joined me on the Chase podcast a couple weeks ago and kind of mentioned that this week 1 game is huge because we all know as the playoff chase heats up closer to the December and January months, these games will be looked back on and noticed as pretty big indicators as to whether a team gets into the playoffs or not. Patrick Mahomes will be making the start. Now, he did play one regular season last year for the Chiefs in Week 17, but now the offense is his. He's got Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, DeAnthony Thomas, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt. So this is an offense in Kansas City that I think, and I mentioned in the divisional previews through the airwaves, that I think the Chiefs will end up with a top 3 scoring offense this year. So I have no doubt that this offense is going to take off. It's just a matter of when. Now, they're going to play a very talented and hard-nosed defense by the Los Angeles Chargers that is led by Gus Bradley, who's done a pretty nice job since taking over the position. They're going to be without Joey Bosa, who's dealing with that foot injury. So that's actually going to be pretty positive news for the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, just knowing that they're not going to have to deal with him. But of course, Melvin Ingram is still bearing down on the opposite side. But as a whole, this Chargers defense has a lot of playmakers and they have versatility. You look at Derwin James, who's expected to start at safety. He can play in the box. They can drop him back in coverage. You got Casey Hayward, who's one of the best cover corners in the NFL. And I think that defense of the Chargers, Phillip Rivers, I expect him to have a big day against a makeshift Chiefs secondary that's still trying to sort things out. I like Kendall Fuller. He's a player they acquired from the Washington Redskins in the trade that involved Alex Smith going to the nation's capital. And then they signed Orlando Skadrick, who will be their third and fourth corner. But I still am not sold on this Kansas City Chiefs secondary, especially without Eric Berry taking the field in Week 1. So that's going to leave another area of that Chiefs defense that Phillip Rivers and this offense, they're going to really look to take advantage of. And by the way, I think Melvin Gordon will be in for a nice, productive day against this Chiefs defense. I think they're really going to make a concerted effort trying to get Gordon more involved in the pass game. I look for him to have 4 or 5 receptions, go off for over 100 yards receiving, get in the end zone at least once. And as I said, look for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, these 2 wide receivers that Phillip Rivers has developed a strong bond with and chemistry to come out and really dominate these Chiefs corners that they will be lined up against on Sunday afternoon. I think the Los Angeles Chargers get the W by a pretty wide margin, and I'm going to give them 34-21 over the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think Patrick Mahomes gets baited into throwing a couple of interceptions to that talented Chargers secondary unit. Now that I've previewed those games, I'm going to go ahead and touch on the remaining games on Sunday's slate and give you my score prediction. The Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers. This is going to be another good game. Cam Newton, they're playing at home in front of their home fans. The Dallas Cowboys, they've kind of been, really haven't been talked about much as far as being a contender in the playoffs. I really think this is a sleeper team. I'm a pretty strong supporter of Dak Prescott. I know a lot of people criticize him. I still think he's in for a good season now that Ezekiel Elliott's back there with him. I don't think they'll be able to do enough in Carolina to come away with the win. So I think Cam Newton and that offense, they get rolling. And I think that defensive front, now with Dontari Poe there, along with K'Wan Short, they're going to be without Thomas Davis. But I still think this Carolina defense, Ron Rivera will have his unit ready. So I think Carolina takes it 27-16 over the Dallas Cowboys. Now here's the remaining games. Buffalo at Baltimore. I think Baltimore will take it. Nathan Peterman was named starter. I think this is a Ravens team that's hungry. John Harbaugh knows he's got to produce, get this team back into the playoffs. They revamped that receiving corps there. I think they win big by a score of 38-17 over Buffalo. Then Tampa Bay and New Orleans. This one I think will be lopsided just because Jameis Winston, as we know, will not be playing. It'll be Ryan Fitzpatrick. And then the Bucs took another big blow on Friday as Brent Grimes suffered a groin strain and is doubtful. So not only that, they're going to be without their best cover corner against the high-octane offense in the Dome in New Orleans. I give the Saints a big victory over Tampa Bay by a score of 34-13. And then Tennessee will go to Miami to play the Dolphins. I think Miami gets it done under Adam Gase. A lot of people don't want to give credit to this Dolphins team, but they're a sneaky good team, especially when they're playing at home. They got a very strong pass rush led by Cam Wake. I think that's the ultimate difference of them creating pressure on Marcus Mariota and making him feel a little uncomfortable against an offense that's looked very shaky throughout the entire preseason. Then the Cincinnati Bengals and the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck, he's played in the preseason, but he finally makes that regular season debut there in Lucas Oil Stadium. I look for him to come out victorious over a Cincinnati Bengals team that I am just quite not confident or sold on just yet. Andy Dalton may have a good game against this young Colts secondary, but I think it is in this one it'll come down to quarterback play, and I'll take Andrew Luck over Andy Dalton any day. Now the two last matchups on Sunday's slate, Seattle at Denver and Washington at Arizona. And these two games, I have Denver sneaking out with a very tight victory over the Seattle Seahawks. I think this defense in Denver at Mile High in that altitude is going to give the Broncos a win. Look for Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, that pass rushing duo, to do some damage against the reworked Seattle offensive line that's still trying to catch their bearings. And then the Cardinals and the Redskins, as I just mentioned. I like the Redskins in this matchup. Alex Smith, I think this system is going to be good for him with Jordan Reed. Look for him to have a big day. Jamison Crowder. I'm not sure what we're going to see from Sam Bradford, who's been, struggled to stay on the field as far as health-wise. I think that plays a factor. David Johnson's back, but this is a Washington defensive front that is very, very good, and they don't really get a lot of mention by the NFL analysts or by very many different sports or NFL commentators. But Daron Payne, you got him there, the first-round pick, playing him alongside Jonathan Williams, and then you got Ryan Kerrigan, and then you got Preston Smith. So that's a defensive line that is just very, very talented, and I think they get the job done for the Washington Redskins. Alright, as I advertised, I'm going to do boom or bust, so it's my own little twist and addition of fantasy football. I'm going to give you 5 players from each position, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and defense, that I think are going to have big days, and then I'm going to give you 5 that are going to quote-unquote bust, that I think will underwhelm in Sunday's matchup. So here we go. The first boom is the quarterback here. I'm going with Kirk Cousins for the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing at home to the San Francisco 49ers against a defense that is still trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Cousins, we know the weapons he has. He'll be ignited by their home fans. That defense is going to help set him up with good field position. So I think he puts up a very nice day. Look for him and Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and those guys to really have themselves a nice week 1. Now for the running back play, how about Melvin Gordon? I mentioned it. Look for him to get the ball a lot on Sunday. Phillip Rivers does pass a lot, but this is an offense that is putting a little larger emphasis on getting Melvin Gordon the ball. This Chiefs defense, while their defensive front, they do possess some talented players. I think this Chargers offensive line, now they got Forrest Lamp back and Pouncey there at center, they'll be able to get enough push to where Gordon can reach that 100-yard mark and maybe surpass it by some yards as well. At the receiver position, this one is a no-brainer. Michael Thomas from the New Orleans Saints. No Brent Grimes. He may get Vernon Hargreaves, but nonetheless, whoever is lined up against Michael Thomas, I think they're going to be in for a long day. Michael Thomas, we know what he can do at the line of scrimmage. His physicality, his ability to make catches in the red zone, contested catches. Look for him to get a pretty large workload and plenty of looks from Drew Brees. Now from the tight end, how about Jordan Reed? This is a very talented tight end, but he just can't seem to stay healthy. He's been out for all the preseason. He's expected to be ready to go on Sunday. Alex Smith is a quarterback that relies heavily on his tight end. We saw that and how he utilized Travis Kelce Look for that to be the case with Jordan Reed there in that Washington offense. I know this is a pretty tough Arizona defense that he'll be going up against, but I just feel like he's going to finally remind everybody the type of impact player he is when he can get on the field for a full season. And then the defense for Boom, the Baltimore Ravens. They get Nathan Peterman. They're playing at home. Emotions will be high. Terrell Suggs. This is, of course, Jimmy Smith was suspended. But in this game, I don't think it's really going to matter. This is a Bills offense that's going to have LaShawn McCoy. But I look for him to be a non-factor on Sunday. This Ravens defense, for the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've been a top 10 unit. I look for that to continue here in this 2018 season. Now I will go to my bust, which are 5 players that I think are going to struggle a little bit. So the first one being Patrick Mahomes there from the Kansas City Chiefs. I've stated my support and how I think this Chiefs offense can be something special. But in week 1, they're going to come out of the gates a little bit with a tough matchup. I think Mahomes, he may throw for 270, maybe a little more, but it's going to be the interceptions that may hinder his performance. So that's why, as far as fantasy goes, if he's your number one option, of course, roll with him because they have potential for big plays with the speed they have on the outsides. But he just kind of concerns me a little bit here in week 1. Running back, Leonard Fournette. I know this is a guy that's an RB1 for a lot of people, but this Giants defensive front, I fully expect them to come out and shut down these running lanes against the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Damon Harrison, he's one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the game. They're under that new scheme. They're going to be at home. I think Fournette's going to have a pretty tough day on his hands. While he may score a couple touchdowns being in the red zone, but as far as his entire workload and his yards per carry average, I look for it to be relatively low on Sunday against a pretty good Giants defensive front. My receiver that I think will bust or fizzle a little bit, Juju Smith-Schuster from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know a lot of people, he was kind of the hype pick in the fantasy draft this year. He's a very productive wideout playing opposite of Antonio Brown, and his value shot up, especially when Martavis Bryant was traded from Pittsburgh. But the Cleveland Browns, they got some new corners, Denzel Ward, Terrence Mitchell, Demarius Randall at that other safety, Jabril Peppers. I think they're going to do a good job of at least limiting what Juju Smith-Schuster can accomplish on Sunday. Tight end, Delaney Walker for the Tennessee Titans. This is a Titans offense that has kind of been sleepwalking throughout the preseason. I do eventually think they're going to find their rhythm under their new offensive coordinator. Marcus Mariota will get things back in order. But for week 1, going up against a pretty good Miami pass rush, and then they have an athletic group of linebackers with Kiko Alonso, Raekwon McMillan. I think they are able to limit Delaney Walker, and I feel like he may not have that productive of a day. And then lastly, the defense that I think may underwhelm is the Arizona Cardinals. They're playing host to the Washington Redskins, but this is a Redskins team. Now you got Adrian Peterson, who looks like he has plenty to offer. And I think while they may get their share of turnovers, they still have Patrick Peterson, arguably the best corner in the game. But I feel like Alex Smith will be able to win his battles against this defense. And for that reason, I think Arizona may underwhelm and underachieve expectations just a bit on Sunday. Alright, well there's all my content. I previewed some of the top matchups, some of the games on Sunday. How about some boom or bust for fantasy football? And I look forward to having you join me for next Wednesday's episode as I'll preview Thursday Night Football, Bengals, Ravens. I'll break down all the key matchups there. I appreciate you watching today's episode. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Pro Football Chase. Have a great and blessed rest of your Saturday evening.